Welcome to Wellness Wednesday and the Chronically Driven radio show and podcast. How are you doing? I hope everyone is having a fabulous day and enjoying this amazing weather. It is now officially summer, and we are certainly being treated to temperatures that represent that. It feels so good. On today's program, we are going to be talking about not only feeling good, but feeling great. And when we are feeling great, how even more than ever, it's important to remember our self-care. Self-care is something we talk about a lot on this program, and for sure, self-care is not selfish. In fact, it is really, in my opinion, one of the keys to wellness. Today's conversation is with Becky Gale from Cure Chronic. Her and I have both had quite an interesting several months. She and I have both recently had a surgery that we are recovering from. And we talk about self-care leading up to things like that, the importance of it, and how to make it an integral part of our lives. Stay tuned. This is Chronically Driven. Welcome back to another Chronically Driven episode. I'm so pleased to be here. Sandra Silva, once again here with Becky Gale from Cure Chronic. Becky, thank you so much for joining us on the show again today. It's always so good to have a chat with you.
You too, Sandra. I'm so stoked to be back on. And, last time we left off, we were talking so much about self-care. And as we are getting healthier, because we've both had such a strange year so far, how is your self-care going?
I'm glad you asked, first of all, because it's one of the most important. It has become one of the things that over the years I have learned to absolutely make it a priority, make it something that I do as a daily practice, she says, as she sits here in front of the microphone. But in reality, what happens, especially when we start feeling better, is sometimes we forget about that. So the honest answer is my self-care is back on track, and I noticed I let it slip a little bit. I let my boundaries down. I was taking on too much. I was overscheduled. I was overscheduled in a way that at the time I was feeling good. I was feeling proud of myself. It's like, wow, look at me getting all this stuff done. And then after 3 days of pushing through with stuff, I'm like, uh-oh. So self-care is back on track. It needs to be so important. How about same question to you, back at you. How are you doing with your self-care?
Yeah, you're so right. It's so easy to forget about our self-care, especially when we kind of start to go back to normal, start to go back to work, and especially when we're feeling better and we're, like for me, I'm if I'm not 100%, I'm like 110% because I'm so much better than I was back in January, sort of thing. And so but the other thing too is I find that because it's almost like my life is going faster and faster and faster and faster. And so for me, the self-care is so important to help slow everything down and just remind myself of being mindful of what I'm going through and not getting overwhelmed with what I'm going through. So definitely, I feel like I could always do better with my self-care for sure. But like, I still take the time. I wake up every morning and I have a cold shower, and that's the way I start my day. And it's crazy because if I don't do that, I don't remember the last time I haven't had a cold shower in the morning, to be quite honest. And, but I find that if I don't do that, then I'm kind of in a crummy mood, sort of thing. And I try to do my meditation or my breathing technique several times throughout the day, just to make sure that, I'm checked in and I'm mindful. And also, if I am getting overwhelmed, if I have too many calls in the day, then it just kind of brings me back to, okay, like, let's just chill out. Everything's good. Everything's kind of on par, whatever, so I would say I'm kind of like you, where it's easy to forget self-care and how important self-care is. And there can always be more room for more self-care, but it's definitely something that I do on the regular for sure. But I was going to ask you, what do you do for self-care?
I do a lot of different things for self-care.
Mm-hmm.
The main one for me that I've learned to do is to be respectful of my time and basically my capacity within any given day, week, month, if you want to be putting it out, planning, because when, no matter what else I'm doing with having the condition rheumatoid arthritis, it's an autoimmune condition, regardless of anything else, the fatigue and the energy levels are always something that need to be managed. And so I need to be disciplined with not overscheduling, disciplined with allowing that time. And then some of the things that I do, I mean, you mentioned meditation. Meditation is so valuable. It's such a
Mm-hmm.
powerful tool. And also it's so easy. You can
Yeah.
get, if you're new to it, you can get, I mean, there's wonderful free apps that you can get for guided meditations. I started that way. Now I just sort of, I just sort of do my own thing. Exercise is another one that is on, like, absolutely on the top of my list. If I do not, I'm more active now on a daily basis, but
Mm-hmm.
I actively pursue working out every second day. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever I don't do that, just like with your cold showers, if I miss my every second day, not only do I
Mm-hmm.
feel it in my body, I feel it emotionally. I feel it everywhere.
Right.
So I mean, those are the, making sure, you know, my time is respected, that I'm moving my body, I'm meditating, I'm eating
Mm-hmm.
proper food, not anything
Right.
strict, but not, you know, not going ongoing, not, you know, making sure I do that. And I also do things like essential oils and being able to use those to help switch my mood, to help switch out of a stressful situation. Because I don't
Yeah.
know about your life, Becky, but mine's not completely stress-free. I don't have everything, you know, it's just not, it's, I don't get to orchestrate it and to turn out all that way. So stress does happen. And my old ways would be to allow that stress to get under my skin and affect my health. And now I
Mm-hmm.
use ways, all the things I mentioned, space, exercise, and all that. I'll go for a walk on
Yeah.
the beach. I'll use my essential oils. I'm huffing on those things like crazy to help these, to benefits, to feel better. And then I know one that you and I both, we see our Instagram photos, nature.
Oh yeah. Big time.
I mean, spending time outside. I don't care what kind of a crappy mood you're in. I mean, I've got the ocean, you've got the mountains, lakes and valleys and forests in between. I mean, it's pretty powerful. So that's kind of like, that's
Yes.
my basic toolkit. And I also would like to add in there, I have an extremely supportive spouse,
Mm.
a loving relationship where I am able to find support when I need it, and it just, fills my cup.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, especially for people with chronic disease, we're the ones that need to have the most supportive spouse out there kind of thing. And, you know, I'm right there with you. I mean, my fiance, if you will, it's weird calling him that, you know,
Fancy.
yeah, I know. Right. Ugh. But anywho, you know, he was so supportive when I was in the hospital, and, you know, had he not been there, I'm sure I would have had a much different time in the hospital than I did, you know,
Mhm.
because of the fact that he was there. But you mentioned nature and you mentioned space. And I honestly believe that nature is the way to take space from our busy lives, to take space from the concrete jungle, to take space. Okay, fine, I live in the middle of nowhere and there's not that many people around me. But at the same time, too, I still have a job. I still work with a lot of people. I still work with, like, you sit on your computer and you're watching whatever it is, you know, and it's stressful. And you have call after call after call, and you're dealing with clients and blah, 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 whatever it is. Well, just like you, you know, I have two dogs now. And so we try to get out for at least 45 minutes to an hour and a half a day, just to go for a hike, just to go for a walk, get the fresh air, stand in nature, listen to the birds, whatever it is, because you're so right. I mean, nature is I believe, the number one stress reliever, because I mean, that's taking us back to our grassroots, our
Mhm.
ancestry. You know, we're supposed to technically live in nature if you really think about it.
Yeah, and so many of the things that we are surrounded with in our modern lives, whether it be the rubber or on the soles of our feet that we're not actually earthing and
Mm-hmm.
touching the earth, all of the
Right.
electronics. You and I are both, we've got electronics in our ears in front of our, I
Yeah.
mean, it's what we do. And being able to get to break that cycle, I think on every level, where it's just, it's how we, it's one of the ways that we recharge.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it's easy for us to forget that, I think. You know, it's easy for us to forget that nature is healing and water is healing and all
Mhm.
these different natural things that we can surround ourselves, even just standing outside on a windy day. Wind is
Mhm.
healing. It's all these different things that I think it's so easy for us to forget because we're so wrapped around the new age society, the way that the world is working nowadays. And it just feels like kind of like the way that my life is just kind of exponentially going faster and faster. I just feel
Mm.
like every single person's life is exponentially going faster and faster and faster. And so self-care, meditation, nature, all these things is just a way for us to just slow down and just be grateful for the fact that number one, we're alive and we
Mhm.
have this awesome life to live on this beautiful planet that we were given.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I've noticed that's an interesting shift now in feeling like when you're in the midst of a health crisis, whether
Mm-hmm.
that be called a flare up or a just a really difficult time, we look at self-care then as to so that we don't get worse or to try to get a little bit of relief or because it's really important. But when we're feeling well,
Mm-hmm.
when we tap into self-care, that's a way to make us allow us to feel amazing, like not just
Exactly.
to feel good, but
Mm-hmm.
to feel great. And for some people, and I know this, I've lived many times throughout the years where I've gone months and months and months and months where I have not had even a single day where I felt good, let alone great. So
Mm-hmm.
when we do get some relief, absolutely, let's be grateful for that, that we're not suffering as much with whatever the condition is, but we could always reach for more. Feeling good is
Mm-hmm.
not just the absence of pain or the absence of being unwell. Feeling good is really, when you can tap into that, it's at a different level. And I really feel that that's achievable for us at whatever, wherever we are at in our wellness. And it needs to, self-care is not something that's delivered to you. It's intentional. We're the
Mm-hmm.
drivers of it. We can have other people and participants helping with us, whether, I mean your dogs, my pets, the things that we have, but everything else are at down at the end of the day, we're the drivers of this.
Oh, absolutely. And I love what you just said. Feeling good is not the absence of pain. You're so right there. And I think, you know, for me, the reason, I mean, the people I tell that and I have these cold showers are like, are you nuts?
Hmm.
And I say to them, like, you know what? The cold showers in the morning, the Wim Hof breathing technique that I do is what something that's good for me. And I know a lot of other people that do it, but the thing is for me, it encourages focus, clarity. It helps with productivity. It helps motivate me. It helps keep me on track. There are so many different things that you're right. It's not just to keep me healthy or keep me whatever it is. It's to make me feel absolutely amazing. And that's how I feel every single day that I wake up and have a cold shower. I could wake up and I could be in the worst mood ever.
Hmm.
I'm tired, I'm cranky, give somebody get me a coffee, whatever, but then I go and have a cold shower and it's like I'm a new person. It's totally crazy.
So indulge me a bit here. Do you start right out cold? Do you ease into
Oh
cold?
yeah.
What is it
Nope.
like? A full blast right off
Yeah,
the hop.
so the our shower is about 4 degrees. It's not very warm, which
Hmm.
is good. So I let the cold water actually run for like a minute or two to make sure that it's really, really cold. And then I
Hmm.
just dive in and stand in the cold shower for 2 minutes. But the cool thing is you really have to focus on your breathing. You have to focus on things. And
Hmm.
what I do is I set intentions for that shower, right? Whether it's gratitude or whether it's focus or something. And the one thing that I've kind of almost turned into a bit of a mantra is power, love, healing, abundance. So I have power
Mm.
within me, love surrounds me, healing embodies me, and abundance is attracted to me. And that's very much something that I've been kind of saying. And I say it in the shower. When I do meditation, I try to encourage, repeat it as I do my meditation, just because I think that it's something that it's something that's true to myself, right? Like I want to be a powerful influence on people so that I can help people. I want to be there to encourage people. Love, I attract love, and I embody love, because I truly believe that, I have a lot of love to give, right? And I also, I feel like love attracts love, sort of thing. And so you create all these great relationships. Healing surrounds me, healing embodies me. Well, guess what? I'm not going to get sick because a healing is around me forever. And then abundance is attracted to me. Well, yeah, I want an abundance of so much in my life, health, wealth, happiness, all the good things. And we all deserve abundance, whatever it is. We deserve an abundance of health. We deserve an abundance of love. We can have it all. It just depends on our mindset, sort of thing. And so I truly believe that starts with self-care.
It starts with self-care. And I love how you're actually talking about putting into words the intentions of what you are trying to create, what is in alignment of how you want to live your life. And by speaking it and putting it out there, whether, no matter what you want to call it, whether it's energy, law of attraction, just the basic, what we put out comes back to us, whether in so many forms. So I love that in intention setting, both like during the showers and in the meditations, because you know what? We have a choice. You could be thinking a lot of different things. We could be having, and so that, again, that is something that is intentional. These thoughts, by now, when it becomes routine, they probably do pop into your head. But initially, when you're starting, you're thinking about that intentionally, and you're setting that tone and expectation. I like it.
Yeah, no. And I find that it really does change my day for the better. I mean, I feel like right now I'm quite overwhelmed every day, just because my work is getting so busy. And of course, it's been about 2 months since my surgery, and, overwhelmed with, I'm buying a new house, overwhelmed, I have a new puppy, overwhelmed, there are just so many things. And so it kind of grounds me. And I feel like a lot of different self-care, whether you do guided meditation or you just do breathing techniques or whatever it is, to help bring us back to, okay, we need to slow down, because if not, we can just let our brains go and go and go and go and go. And oftentimes I find, especially, I mean, this is 100% what happened to me when in January, February, March, before I got really sick. The stress that you can feel will put you into a negative cycle, and it just keeps going and down and down and down and down. And then you get really sick, and it's like, why is this happening to me? I'm afraid, I'm this, I'm that. And so if we can prevent that, if we can focus on a regular basis, and again, this is why self-care is so important when we're healthy, is so that we don't get into those stressful cycles. We don't get into that negative thinking, because you're right. At the end of the day, we have the choice. We could either think positively or we could think negatively. No matter what, every single person on this planet is going to experience stress. You can make that stressful situation a positive one, or you can make that stressful situation a negative one. It's totally our choices. It's amazing.
And we create the experiences that we want to have. And I'm always reminded of the old analogy that I've heard for years and years, of someone saying, well, I always wanted to go back to school, but I'm not going to do that now, because my goodness, when I finish my degree, I'd be 62 years old. And it's like, well, even if you don't, you're going to be 62 years old. So, or wherever we are. And so go for it. Go for the things that time is happening tomorrow and the next day and the next day. God granted, those are going to happen, and we're going to be here. So I think we lose sight sometimes of what is in our control, especially if we are having health challenges in a time where so much feels out of our control. And I really, really believe that self-care is one of those ways that when, no matter what's going on in our world, that it's so easy to do, and to be able to do something like that in a midst where everything else is not something that you can control and manage. You can control and manage something like your own self-care.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about that, kind of going back to, um, that comment, you're going to be 62 regardless. I mean, we can choose happiness too. We can choose to stay in a job that we don't like, stay with a boss that we hate, stay in a situation, in a cycle. Oh, well, I have to keep this job because I have to keep food on the table for my family and blah, blah, blah. Well, you can choose to stay that way, but there are so many different resources for us to be able to make a change and be in a happier situation. It's like choice is an amazing thing because of the fact that we have the ability to do what we want when we want to. Okay, fine, it might make somebody a little bit upset, but who cares? You need to live the life that you want to live, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just had another great interview with a couple of ladies talking about this exact same concept of finding what is that drives us, what gives us purpose, what brings us joy, and then
Yes,
why the heck aren't we doing that? and
totally.
and that we tend to put maybe some limitations and barriers, but our world's not like that anymore. There
Mm-mm.
really totally are so many things to do, and and even when it comes to our health, Becky, you and I are both really honest that we are not, we don't sugarcoat and say, well, if you just think your way, you can think your way to health and happiness. Like, haha, yeah. I mean, it's no, that's not it. We're saying we're here as people who have had pretty significant health challenges, and we're here to
Yeah.
tell you that mindset makes a difference. We're here to tell you
Mm.
that we're not talking about magic dust and fairies, but oh my goodness, we're talking about making things that actually make a real difference. And if you are someone that wants to feel better more often, if you are someone who is looking for ways to get a little bit of a break, doing some things like self-care is amazing. I mean, those
Mm.
cold showers reminded me of a term that's been coming up a lot lately for me, and that's people saying clarity by contrast,
Mhm.
and to
Mm.
gain perspective. So whether it's, you're saying that it resets your focus in your brain, and it allows you to put on to focus in on your breathing, and you do your affirmations or your mantras, and so then no matter what is going on, you're
Mhm.
getting clarity by complete contrast and by focus. What we focus on expands.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I mean, you can be in pain every single day and you could be happy. It's
Hmm.
totally dependent on your mindset. And like, I don't wish pain on anybody, but there are some people out there that I know that have been in pain every single day of their lives. And they're some of the most positive people that I've ever met. And, self-care, when it comes to like mindset and self-care, I think kind of go hand in hand. And when you limit your self-care, I think that your mindset gets affected by it. And so after a few days or a few weeks or a couple of months or whatever it is, like, especially for me, I definitely noticed that this year because I neglected my self-care for 2 months, and I noticed I started getting really scared. I was
Mm.
so unsure. I was very negative. So it's just this, like I said, this cycle. And so I think that what happens is when you do self-care on a regular basis, whether it be, the cold or your meditation, or even waking up and just having gratitude. I
Hmm.
think what ends up happening is that self-care resets your mindset and ends up having, like, it creates a positive mindset for your day or for your week or even for
Hmm.
the hour, because it's super easy to get stressed out and for your body to be like, I'm so overwhelmed and I'm angry and you know
Hmm.
and then as soon as you say, okay, you know what, I'm overwhelmed, I need to take 5 minutes for myself, whether that's 5 minutes of just sitting there and just breathing and just being mindful, or it's 5 minutes of doing whatever it is, going outside, having a cold shower, maybe you're going to go jump into a cold pool. I don't know. Um, but the thing is resetting your mind, taking control of your mind And doing that self-care is going to make a huge difference for your happiness and your well-being, because of the fact that, yeah, it's definitely not going to get rid of a disease, that's for sure, but it'll help with the day-to-day with the disease.
Taking control of our mind, our mindset, our thoughts, understanding that we should be the ones in charge of that, especially in a
Yeah.
time when I don't think you and I would spend a lot of time on mainstream news and things like that. But
No.
if we did, there's a lot of stuff going on of putting a story of what's going on and how people are supposed to think and feel and respond and
Yeah,
stuff. And it's a lot. I know that it can be overwhelming. And
totally.
so stepping away from that sort of stuff and being,
Mm-hmm.
being in charge of our own destiny and being, it's pretty magical.
Yeah. Well, I mean, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, I mean, stepping out into nature, because this pandemic has been a long time running, and it's
Hmm.
so, I think that all of us are dealing with this elevated level of stress. Just kind of, this is where we're at. This is how we live. And so having the ability to step outside and step into nature and go and hug a tree, this sounds stupid, but like seriously, because you're right, it's so easy to be stressed out, even especially if you watch the news often. If you watch the news often, get rid of your TV.
Hmm.
But I case in point for me this year, when I had surgery, I went through a whirlwind of emotions, and the recovery process has been so up and down and up and down, and good days and bad days. And I don't know if I told you last time on our last call, but I ended up having, so when I had my colectomy, they had to take out my whole colon, and they sent it for a pathology test to see if I had Crohn's or colitis. And
Hmm.
I had been diagnosed Crohn's for 15 years, and
So
I had to
Crohn's
wait.
disease, that was your official diagnosis for, did you say
Mhm.
15 years?
15 years,
Okay.
yeah. So, and Crohn's disease, it's an inflammatory bowel disease that
Hmm.
affects your whole digestive tract, so from your mouth all the way to your butthole, basically. So there's no cure for Crohn's. There's no, apart from medication and some surgeries, you can manage it, you can go into remission,
Hmm.
but there's no cure. Colitis, on the other hand, you can actually cure colitis with surgery by just taking out your large intestine, basically. So the interesting thing was, um, I had the surgery on April the 5th, and I was there for another week. And then I had about 3 weeks of recovery. And again, I got back into my meditation. At this point in time too, I was still very sick. Like I was 125 pounds soaking wet.
Mm.
I'm 5'10", that's small.
Yeah.
And so, it was trying to eat healthy, but I had to eat lots of carbs and lots of pastas, because also I had an ostomy bag. And so I couldn't eat really healthy fibrous foods like vegetables and that sort of thing. So it was trying to stay positive while not eating not the best foods, because I had to gain weight, and this was the diet for this
Mm.
surgery, basically. So that was a struggle, but doing the self-care every single day really helped me stay on track with, okay, I have to gain weight, I have to get healthier and that sort of thing. But the interesting thing was, on May the 5th, I went back into Calgary to talk to my surgeon, follow up, see how everything was. And they kept referring to my disease as colitis. And so I said to him, well, so do I have Crohn's or do I have colitis? And the funny thing about a pathology test, and I don't know if anybody really knows this or not, but it's not 100%. It's not 100% test. It's like their best guess kind of thing. And it
Okay.
was just so funny, because the surgeon, he looks in the paper, and he pulls them aside, and he's like, oh, this is a really small report, like it's only 3 pages long kind of thing. He's like, yeah, you're classic case colitis. And so I've actually been misdiagnosed for 15 years. And the crazy thing is, and we with people with chronic disease cannot
Hmm.
think this way, but as soon as I thought this, or as soon as they told me, number one, I thought I was going to cry. But it was crazy, because the thoughts that came into my head were, oh my God, I wish I knew this 10 years ago. I could have had this surgery and I could have been healed for 10 years. Stop.
Hmm.
We cannot think that way. And this is where these thoughts is where your mind automatically goes, right? So I had to think to myself, oh my God, I am so grateful that I am 31 years old and I got this told to me now, so that I can have surgeries while I'm young and healthy, and
Hmm.
then live the rest of my life potentially disease free.
Yep.
You know, And it's so easy for us, especially for extreme situations like that, where you're given this news and you're like, whoa, I'm totally shocked. Or even with a new diagnosis, for example, mindset is so important, because getting a diagnosis of something that you're going to have for the rest of your life is terrifying. It is on,
Yep.
and you know it, I know it. You go through the cycles of grief, you go through that denial, anger, whatever it is. And eventually you get to the acceptance part. But like, if I can give anybody some advice who just got recently diagnosed with some type of lifelong disease, mindset is going to be everything, everything as you're going through the stages, as you're going through trying new drugs, as you go with your doctors, because there's going to be so many times where, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Why, blah, 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 blah. And like, from a chronic disease person to another one, it's so important to say, why is this happening for me? How can I use this as a strength to help others? And you know what? It sucks. Don't get me wrong. Diseases suck. They suck, you know,
Yep.
and like, when we don't control them, we have no idea when you're going to flare or when you're not going to flare. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, because it sucks. But at the end of the day, if you take care of yourself, if you take care of your body as best you can with self-care, diet, surrounding yourself with positive, empowering people, like, that's a big one too. Don't surround yourself with people who do drugs and drink all the time, that are like super negative Nancy's. Like, do not do that, please. Step yourself outside of that type of a situation. But at the end of the day, chronic disease sucks, but we can make the best of it with self-care, with mindset, with surrounding ourselves with people that love us, that care for us, that want the best for us as well. And the other thing too is there are so many different communities, so many different support groups out there that are going to be there to help you. And nobody wants anything for this. They just want to help you from the bottom of their hearts. Just like you have your podcast, Sandra, and I have my podcast. And we just want to do this because we care about people.
You mention mindset and people think it's just these happy feelings, happy talk, and they bash it and push it aside and saying, yeah, oh yeah, roll their eyes. When I have used my mindset, sometimes it's been digging down to some pretty gritty things within myself. Sometimes it's taking through a journey of, like you talked about, the different stages of dealing with a diagnosis, and going through these and moving through them. Someone who is initially diagnosed, that state of shock, that state when you found out that you had been misdiagnosed for 15 years, you could have chosen to be on a rampage tirade, pointing fingers, blaming. How dare you? You could have done that.
Totally. Yeah.
You want to know what? I bet you would have had you have put yourself into some sort of a health crisis of some sort or another. Yeah. So it's a choice. Instead, there's whole different ways to do that. Gratitude is another one that comes up a lot. Again, it's a practice. It's a muscle. I really think that when you do develop the skill to work with mindset and to have gratitude, if you practice it enough, if you put enough value into it, not that you just only need it when times are tough, but if that's kind of embodies who you are, when times get challenging, it's easier to reach for that, because you don't have to go digging. It's there on the surface, and we can always go back to and utilize those things, even if we need a gentle reminder every once in a while.
Oh, absolutely. And, it's so easy for us. So going back to how mindset is like you have to practice it. It's almost like going to the gym. Like, you have to think of your brain as a muscle, right? And if you go to the gym and you're getting stronger and everything, but it's the same thing, because I truly believe that our society, for whatever reason, like, the news scares us. When we go to school, they don't teach us about mindset, about anything. They teach us about war and about the history of you know what I mean? So our minds tend to be quite negative, and it's so easy. Like, the tipping point for our thoughts, it's not even like an even tip. It's like 75% of the time you're going to tip negative. Right. And then, okay, let's even go 80% of the time, just because that's what we're taught. That's what we grow up with. That's what we, if you have parents who are not supportive of you, you're going to be even more negative, right? And so a positive mindset or thinking positively is a practiced skill. Being grateful and practicing self-care too. Like you have to turn your old bad habits into self-care positive habits, and it takes work. It is not easy. It, like, trust me, it has taken me a long freakity dickety time to get to where I am now. When I was a kid, I used to be so negative. I was the most negative Nancy in the room, and I was angry all the time, very much self-doubt, and, why don't I have this? Why can't I do that? Why am I in debt? Well, and so when we change our minds, it's amazing how our lives change as well. Instead of, you could have $100,000 in debt. And if you start saying, I'm wealthy, I'm rich, I have lots of money, it's amazing how things just start to change for you to start paying off your debt. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen fast, but it happens slowly, because when your mindset changes, things around you change as well.
Yes. And also I'm finding that we talked a lot about nature as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what I notice is that when I have when I do a check-in within my mindset, when I do a check-in with gratitude, all of a sudden I start noticing and seeing things that are literally like, just, oh my goodness, what a gift that is to see those two
Yeah.
eagles nesting there, or that rock over
Mm-hmm.
there, like just being present and noticing things. And that's, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be in nature. It can be when you're driving in your car. When you look, whatever you look for, you're going to find.
Yes.
You
Yes.
look for the good, you'll find it. Look for the crappiest, most evil, depressing, everything's there, it is.
Well, and the interesting thing, the way that I like to think of like the law of attraction or mindset or positive thing, all that stuff, it's, if you've ever seen, if like, say you've never seen a green truck before in your life, and then all of a sudden you see this beautiful green truck on the highway, and then all of a sudden you see green trucks everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a thing. What happens to all of us. It's crazy. And having that mindset is the exact same way. If we think of the things that we truly want in life, like helping other people and doing something great with our lives in order to, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
then we'll start to automatically change. People, the perfect people will come into our lives, which is crazy. But if we start thinking about, oh, I'm getting sick, I'm just going to keep getting more sick, and this medication's not working, or blah, blah, blah. Well, the medication's not going to work. I am classic case of that. 2 years ago, I was on a biologic that I kept saying to the doctor, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. Well, guess what? It wasn't freaking working. Was it because the medication wasn't working, or was it because I was forcing it not to work because of my thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
We have total control over every single cell in our body, which is an interesting fact. And so
Yeah.
when we think a certain way, our cells will automatically start doing that, which is interesting.
It is. I've been I've been learning a little bit more about that exact process and premise, and it is very interesting because it works both ways. I think every time that you have been having chats here with me, we've talked about Gabriel Mate and The Body Says No. So this is all about talking about how the hidden cost of stress, how it manifests into disease, which is dis-ease.
Yeah.
And so if you believe in that principle, which I do, then guess what? Mirror that to that. If damage can happen within this vessel of ours by what we're thinking, so can healing, recovery, thriving. I mean, I think we don't nearly tap into what is available. We don't utilize our brain power. It's so underused. And when we find that we can get things working, so that when everything's working in alignment, mind, body, and soul. We're taking care of our
Yes.
self-care. We're doing, we're understanding the importance of proper sleep and hydration and stuff. And then when all of a sudden we're noticing that not only are we not feeling bad, we're not just feeling good, we're feeling great. And we want more of that. And when you experience the type of things that can happen from doing this sort of work, you want to put that shit on repeat.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And you're so, and I mean, Sandra and I are not saying that you can think yourself out of a flare up or think yourself out of whatever you're going through. But the thing is the reality is the more you believe that the medication's working, or the more you believe that your body is healing, or the more that you think that, you know, your life is getting better, the more that it actually will. And we're not, you know, we don't make this stuff up. This stuff is real. And you're right. I mean, it is about our mind, and as soon it becomes addictive, it literally becomes addictive, because once you start accelerating in the right way with your life and that mind, body, soul connection, you're never going to want to go back to the way that you were. Not a chance.
Nope, not a chance. And along the way too, you have to be, I find you need to become comfortable with disappointing some people and the word no, and being able
Totally.
to recognize and not feel bad about it, to
Yeah.
find ways to really recognize that if it's not in alignment with where you want to be, that you might want to kind of check in and see if that's something you really should be doing. That's
Yep.
like when we started, I was talking about making sure that I don't overextend myself. And that means saying no to situations, to circumstances, to things when it's going to take me over the edge. And that takes a little bit of discipline in the beginning, and sometimes it feels a little awkward in the beginning, but then eventually it starts to feel good.
Well, exactly. And I think that that stems a lot from having your own boundaries too, right? Because I feel like there's a lot of people out there that they can't say no, right? And so they end up doing way too much for other people. They forget about their own self-care, but it's about putting up boundaries. And if people get offended by your boundaries or upset with your boundaries, then you probably shouldn't be hanging out with those people anyways. I kind of touched on it before, where it's like, if you're hanging out with people or who are, you know, not challenging you, who are jealous of you, that's a big one, who are kind of not motivating you to be a better person, or if you're going and you're accelerating, you're going in this direction and they're like, what are you doing? And they don't have faith in your process. I'm sorry, but you need to leave them in your dust. Like, it's just, as human beings, if we are in the process of change for the better, if we are in this positive, like, the other thing too that happens when we change our mindset, we change our lives, we start thinking this way, change happens all the time. Change happens for the better all the time. And so we have to become comfortable with not only the ability to say no, but also the ability to accept change as it comes to us.
The
And
ability to
so,
say yes
absolutely,
when needed.
exactly.
I mean, it's like, yeah, totally.
Totally.
You're reminding me of the term that I've heard. I'm sure it's a book or something out there, that you you basically are a reflection of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's choose your circle wisely, keep your circle small. And no, we're not talking about anything about social distancing here, people. We're talking about, you know, the type of life that we want to lead. And whether or not, I mean, on short hits, you know, you may, through circumstances, relationships, business, family, or otherwise, sometimes be in situations where everyone's not in alignment with you. But for the most part, for on the regular, what you're getting, what you're absorbing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, both from words, actions, and otherwise from people around you, if it's not clicking and being in alignment of where you're going, that's probably for a reason. You're probably feeling that disconnect for a reason.
Absolutely. And it's okay. You know, There was like, I truly believe that the universe puts people in our lives for a reason, you know, whether they were there to support us through a hard time, or they were your childhood best friend, or whoever it is, kind of thing. And you can keep that relationship. That's fine if you want to. But the people who are most close to you, your best friends, the people that you hang out and talk to the most, you want them to be making the money that you want to make, or on their way to doing so. You want their mindset to be the same as yours. You want their obsessions to be the same as yours, whether that is helping other people or challenging themselves or motivating or whatever it is, like being inspirational, for example, right? So, and a lot of the times, especially when we're dealing with chronic disease, we're surrounded by people who are quite negative. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is that negativity, it's almost like a weight that gets put onto us, because I find that most people with chronic disease are incredibly empathetic people. And so instead of focusing on their self-care and getting better, they're focused on that person who is putting a weight on them, which is not okay.
And it's, yeah, I'm protective of that.
Oh, and we have to be. I mean, I cannot stand being in the same room as somebody who is like that, because you can literally feel their energy from a mile away. It's crazy. And you can literally feel them. They're life suckers. They are life sucking. Oh, it's painful. And I just get yourself out of those situations. And the more that we take ourselves out of those situations, the more that we're going to want to be in motivating, inspirational, and uplifting situations, especially going through recovery. If we're going through something, like, for example, you went through a major surgery this year too, just like I did.
Yep.
And if I were surrounded by people who were negative, life sucking, blah blah blah, I really don't think that I would have recovered as fast as I did and as well as I did, because I was surrounded myself with people who were loving, caring, wanted me to get better faster, as fast as they can. You know, like Tony, my spouse, or my partner, whatever. But you know, he motivated me to get out of bed every day and go for a walk, because that was what's going to heal me as fast as I did, was going for walks and making sure that I was eating healthy and whatever it took. So had I not had him to support me as much as he did, and as positively as he did, like, I'm sure I'd be in a very different situation. And I'm sure that you could say the same as your recovery. Like,
Oh, yeah.
how was your recovery this year with self-care and all that?
I mean, it became my project. I put aside everything else. I trained to, unlike you, I had this was scheduled, this was planned. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing this when I honestly, as if I was taking on like an athletic pursuit, I trained 2 years to get myself in shape for it. And I was still in that training after, and that was my self-care, and I needed that support, and I got it. And it was amazing. We were touching on, there's kind of something that I kind of think is important to say, and it's maybe a bit of some truth talk, a little bit of tough love, or some message that may land for someone. We're talking about how Becky and I really are conscious of not wanting to be around people that are stuck in a negative mindset, and to be in that mode all along. I want to lovingly put out there that if you are someone that is in that headspace, if you are someone that finds yourself always seeking somewhere to point the blame, or to ask why, or to be consumed with the challenges of your chronic condition or your disease, I hear you, I get you, I understand you, I love you, and if you want to, you can make a mind shift change. Changes like this, to do the work. We hear that's a phrase I often say, do the work, whether it's going through and seeking some services from a counselor or a psychologist, whether it's just digging in and reading some books, whether it's praying, meditating, or anything. It is never too late to start on making changes in your lives. I look back, if I don't think people that knew me 7 years ago would even recognize the Sandra that they would meet today. I have completely reinvented my life with mindset, lifestyle, everything like that. And so when I sit here and talk the talk, I like to also say that I've walked that path. I know the darkness, I know the heaviness, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's so much tools and support out there, and podcasts like Becky's and like mine, when people get the chance to share their stories and we can hear these things, it's always my hope that that is of service to someone that is really in a place where they could use some help.
Absolutely. And truthfully, one thing to touch on that, Sandra, I mean, if you're one of those people that have a negative mind, or that always turns to the negative and always goes to the self-doubt or the self-blame or whatever it is, know that you're not to blame for that mindset.
Mm-hmm.
There are reasons that you think that way, whether it was your upbringing or just your situation, your environment. Like, there are reasons that you think that way, and that's okay. That is okay. A person that has a negative mind versus a positive mind doesn't mean that you're a good or bad person. It just means that that's just the way you think. It's okay. But we're saying that we all have the ability to change the way that we think, to change those patterns. And just like Sandra said, it's tough work. It is hard to do that, especially because it's kind of like breaking bad habits. And if you've ever tried to quit smoking or whatever it is, like, it's tough. It's really tough, but it takes small steps on a daily basis and consistency, and surrounding yourself with positive people. Like, if you are out there and you have a negative mind and you want a couple of tips, feel free to connect with me. I'm sure Sandra would be happy to talk to you too.
Yeah.
My email is info@curechronic.com. Send me an email and I'd be happy to talk to you about like mindset training or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, there's tons and tons of resources out there about positivity, mindset training. There's mindset coaches out there too. There's so many different resources towards this. But again, like, just like Sandra said, lovingly, it's not your fault. You're not a bad person if you think negatively. It's just your situation. It's just your environment. It's just, it is what it is.
And we can feel better more often, and we can choose to make that make self-care your addiction. That's a t-shirt, the self-care addiction or something like that. I mean, that's just it's a topic that I know we are both super passionate about, and I think it shows by the way that I mean, you had your surgery April 5th.
Yeah,
I had mine March 17th, and we're moving through it. We're excited about the future. We're looking forward to times ahead. And with that, do you have anything? Is there anything on the horizon for you that you wanted to share with anyone? Is there what do you have going on?
Oh, no, not much. I mean, I think that, for those who are dealing with chronic illness out there, I mean, just know that there's always light at the end of the tunnel, even though it's hard to see it sometimes. And I mean, especially when I was going through what I was going through, this year was really, really hard. It sucked. And I think back about some of the experiences that I had in the hospital, and like, it brings tears to my eyes about how hard it was. But, I got through that. And if I can get through that, you can get through what you're going through. And it's tough. It sucks. But there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There is always someone there that can support you as well. There are podcasts like Sandra's and mine. There are people that are going through that's the other thing too. One last piece of advice that I can give to anybody is, if you think that you're alone going through what you're going through, you are not. There are billions of people on this planet. There is at least one other person going through what you're going through.
Absolutely. And find those that are like-minded, because for everyone who has whatever your circumstance, situation, or chronic condition is, for every voice out there that is going to tell you that it is rotten and is the worst thing and your life sucks, there are voices out there that are telling you, not only have you got this, but we're here to tell you ways that you can help enhance your experience through things like our gratitude and mindset practices. And it's defining those healthy habits and then stacking them, habit stacking, and putting them together, and architecting and creating.
Absolutely. And creating the best life out there, because, you deserve happiness. You deserve all of the health in the world, everything. If you think you're not deserving, and then you're not going to get anything, but believe that you're deserving of everything and you'll get it. So
Absolutely. I love that.
awesome.
Well, Becky, thank you so much again. I always love our conversations. I know we could go on and on. I look forward to
For
the next
hours.
time. I know. I look forward to the next time we get a chance to do this. I will, of course, put the contacts for Cure Chronic and as well my stuff down in the show notes, so that if you happen to stumble across this episode and you'd like to know how to connect more either with us individually or maybe to get some inspiration from previous episodes, that's where you can find our stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Sandra. This has been wonderful as always, and I really look forward to our next connection.
You bet. Thank you so much for joining me today. You can find all the information for contact for Becky and her different social media platforms in the show notes over on the podcast and YouTube version. If you're looking for those to hear today's episode again or get caught up on previous episodes, simply search for Chronically Driven wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube, and that's where you'll find me. I will be back again next week with another episode. And until next time, I am wishing you wellness.